This man, his name is Brian. Brian works on a construction site. This is after serving 30 years in maximum prison despite of him being innocent. And don't be so shocked when I tell you that his only beloved wife is the one who flamed him simply because of her selfishness. And now it has been only 1 month since Brian was set free from the prison. But in this whole time, not even a single worker on the construction site has never known the story of Brian despite of him being alone and acting lonely all of the time. Now here is the reason why Brian was sent to prison by his wife. Let's go 30 years back before Brian went to prison. So our guy Brian lived in Washington. He used to work on a military base in America. In the team, Brian was one of the best soldiers who accomplished many missions assigned to him. No one ever disrespected him because apart from being the best soldier, Brian earned many ranking badges for accomplishing impossible things. To put all in one sentence, Brian was very recognized and famous. Even his friends sometimes asked for advices from him. But as other normal guy in the earth, Brian had a family, that is a wife, a daughter, and a son. His family was everything to him. He could do anything in the name of his family, but at the end, a family can also be your destroyer, because what Brian didn't know is that his wife had other plans for him. Coming to his wife. She was 28 years old and her name was Dove, yes, as Dove is the bird that you know. So Dove is a well-independent woman who runs her own business of selling flowers. It's like she had a flower shop. So people went there if they needed different kind of flower. And at that period, Dove sold a lot of flowers in a single day, so she would make a lot of profit. To make this clear, Dove was financially stable and therefore she didn't have to rely on Brian for any financial assistance. But as you know, in this case, Brian is the gentleman, as people say, the head of the family. So Brian was the one responsible for paying all of the bills. But now here is where the problem comes in. For the past 6 months, Brian and Dove have not been in a good terms when it comes to their relationship. It's like they have arguing a lot to an extent that Dove sometimes didn't sleep at home. But I think all of this Dove is doing for a reason. This is because when Brian asked Dove where she slept, the answer was, "Why do you care? That's none of your business." But let us not judge too early, because now here is the source of fightings according to Dove. According to Dove, lately Brian have not been spending a lot of the time with his family. In which is true because Brian have been so busy at the military since lately he have been sent to many missions. And to make situations worse, Dove decides to give Brian divorce paper to sign them. But let's be realistic, we all know in this whole situation Dove have unhidden agenda. Because tell me why Dove is arguing a lot, since she knows too well that sometimes at the military our guy can be somehow too busy. And this is the reason as to why I'm saying that. What Brian didn't know is that this whole time, his only wife had been seeing another guy secretly. In short, Dove was cheating on Brian for the past few months that he was away working. Let's call the guy Benvie. So Benvie is 40 years old and he lived in the same hometown as our guy Brian lived. But to make things critical and worse, Benvie used to be in the same military that Brian is right now, but for some reasons Benvie retired. But back on those days, Benvie was one of the generals at the base, which means he was Brian's boss, and in addition, Brian and Benvie knew each other very well. But Benvie decided to break the bro code by stealing Brian woman. And in order to remove Brian on the page, Benvie and Dove came up with a very bad plan on how to eliminate Brian. As we know, obvious Brian wouldn't accept to sign the divorce papers, and because of this Benvie and Dove were not satisfied, and as a result they had to do something about it. In this case, Benvie came up with the solution, and the solution was to send Brian to prison. But there was the problem, they couldn't just send Brian to prison without a mistake, and the mistake should be very solid, which will make him to go to prison forever. And for this case they had to set a trap to our guy Brian, like a setup somehow. Since Benvie had some connection in the military base, all he had to do was make some few calls. In which he made the call and talked to his fellow generals, and they cooked something towards Brian. And for more clarity, remember all of this time Brian's wife is all aware of the plan and she is okay and very happy about it. That's why I'm telling you, fear love. After 2 days since Benvie made the call to the generals at the military base, Brian was called by the senior general at his office. And there he was told there was a rescue mission whereby he was supposed to go and rescue a certain man who was held as a hostage by a certain group of terrorists. According to the mission, the boy was at a certain old church. But Brian had a weird feeling about the mission since he noticed he was not assigned any supportive team to go with it, instead, he was supposed to go as a one-man army. But since it's the order from the general, he didn't question anything. And so he packed his things and started the rescue journey. But at the same time, Dove and Benby called the police and informed them that they have seen a man holding a man in a certain church. And to shock you, the address of the church that they gave the police was the same address Brian was given to go to. Now you understand their plan of finishing Brian. Story continues. After some hours, Brian reached the destination. When he entered inside the church, yes, he found the young man whereby he was badly injured, but weird thing is that there was nobody inside the church. But after few seconds the police were everywhere believing Brian is the terrorist. Yes, Brian tried to escape after realizing it was a setup, but it was too late for him because he was caught, and after standing in front of the judge, that's how our guy was sentenced to prison for 30 years simply because of his wife and Benby.